Hello, everyone. I would like to thank you for being here today. Before the beginning of the session, we would like to share with you a short safety announcement about COVID-19. As you are all aware, mitigating the risk of spreading COVID-19 during the Congress requires the cooperation of all of us. In line with the COVID-19 prevention concept elaborated by our host country Japan and the Secretariat, I would like to kindly remind you of the following precautionary measures. Fill in the contact tracing information sheet found on your assigned table or seat. Maintain at least 2 meters of physical distance from each other when not seated at your assigned seat, and avoid gathering in groups. Wear your FFP2 mask at all times. You may only decide to take your mask off when you are given the floor. Do not attend the meeting if you are unwell. If you feel ill during a conversation, contact the medical personnel stationed in each conference room. These measures are in place for the safety of all of us. I thank you for your support and attention. I shall now give the floor to the moderator of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I start now? Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks our hosts, Ms. Marine, Ms. Sydney, my co-panelist, Professor Shashi Manas, and my namaskar to each and everyone from different parts of the globe who will be joining the session. Well, today we are going to discuss very important, very serious issue. More than 35 to 40 million girl child have been killed or they have gone missing during the last couple of decades. And I'm talking only about India. And this figure goes on increasing if we take it the Asian figures, because this problem is existing in China, in Nepal, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh as well. But the attention has not been focused on this issue. The reason is that you will not find much figures in the Crime Records Bureau, either of India or of other countries. Because the girl children who have been killed, they are still in the womb. No murder case is registered against the perpetrators. And in most of the cases, the perpetrators happen to be the close relatives, the parents, the grandparents, the doctors, etc. And millions are being killed every year. Every day, more than 2,000 girl children are aborted because of this practice. Today, we are going to highlight this issue, why people are doing this thing. Firstly, the problem would be highlighted because Professor Shashi has worked on this problem as a guide to many students on this issue. She will be highlighting the issue, and then I will be speaking on this problem as to why people commit such crimes, which criminological theory or criminological school of thought applies in these cases, and then on the basis of an innovative type of theory or concept which I have developed, I termed it as yogic crime theory. By using certain yoga practices, we can change such criminal behaviors. And I'm hopeful that the international community, the UNODC, and all individual experts will take benefit of the concept and will take it to their countries, because it not only explains the different reasons of crime, but it also explains as to how this type of criminal behavior can be modified. Not only this particular kind of behavior, but all sorts of criminal behaviors can be modified by using this technique. So I'm handing over the plan is that firstly Professor Shashi will speak, because she has done some research work on this thing, and then I will come back to highlight as to how this practice can be curbed or can be controlled, or the criminal behaviors can be modified. So I'll request Professor Shashi Manas. She's the HOD, University of Jammu, Department of Home Science, and since she has worked on this problem, she will be highlighting this issue, and then I'll come back again. Thank you. Professor Shashi.
Thanks, Mr. Jambal. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Jambal. And namaskar to all the participants and organizers, including those assisting in this session. As suggested by Mr. Jamwal, this is a huge problem, and I have worked on this problem and know the extent of this magnitude. More than 35 to 40 million girl children have been killed in India alone in the past few decades due to this practice called female feticide, for which there are typical Indian reasons. But this practice is not confined to India alone. India stands at serial number 4 insofar as sex ratio of male to female is concerned. This practice is prevalent in a lot of Asian countries, and if we see the total population of China, India and other Asian countries, we can imagine as to how many girls are being killed every year only because of their sex, and how this huge difference in male-female ratio is giving rise to millions of other criminal cases, which practice needs to be understood in right perspective, and then my colleague would be offering the solutions for this huge problem. Now I have to share few slides regarding this problem. Okay. Women have been the subject of deprivation, discrimination, intimidation and injustice treatment in society throughout the history, as the fatal crime like female feticide still exists in the world. Female feticide is perhaps one of the worst forms of violence against women, where a woman is denied her most basic and fundamental right, that is the right to live. Girls are often seen as less important to family and community life than boys, regardless of the fact that girl children constitute 1/4 of the population in India. Female feticide is one of the extreme manifestations of violence against women, a social problem that is now spreading unchecked. Female fetuses are selectively being aborted after prenatal sex determination, thus denying girls' right to live. The practice of female feticide involves the detection of the sex of the unborn child in the womb of the mother and the decision to abort it if the sex of the child is detected as girl. The issue of female child has always been a question. There is strong son preference, son syndrome, as male child is considered as asset while female child is considered as liability. In India, a girl when married is given blessings for 100 sons. Never is she blessed with 100 daughters. Birth of a girl in the family is considered or thought to be a watering in neighbor's garden. The long-standing tradition of son preference now gives to the status-conscious Indian families the choice between payment of huge dowry or for daughters or elimination of daughters. It is not poverty alone that kill baby girls. The choices made by the parents and family have a great role to play in curtailing her life. Customs and traditions shape their choices, and when resources are meager, these can make a difference between life and death. The greatest threat in India is the menace of secret sex ratio. As a result of selective abortion, between 35 and 40 million girls and women are missing from the Indian population. In the contemporary period of science and technology, human beings are remedied from rarest of rare diseases by medicinal science, but this blessing of medical science is being put to wrong use. The current modern medical sciences, the tests like amniocentesis and ultrasonography are being misused. These tests, which were initially designed for identification of gender-related congenital abnormalities of the fetus, are now being abused, particularly in India and other Asian countries, primarily to detect the sex of the fetus with the intention of getting it aborted, if it happens to be that of a female. The practice of killing the female child after her birth has been prevailing in our society for many years, but feticide is the legacy and the contribution of the progress made by the medical science. The proliferation and abuse of advanced technologies, coupled with social factors like dowry, concerns with family names, and looking up to the son as breadwinner, contributing to the low status of women, have made the evil practice of female feticide common in middle and higher socioeconomic households. More so in the North Indian states. Advances in technology and diagnostic facilities have opened up avenues for the girl-child haters, leading disturbances in the sex ratio as a result of female feticide. Even in today's time of modernization, globalization, when people are more aware, female feticide is carried out not only in rural areas but even in urban and educated families. These are certain factors which are leading to the declining sex ratio. These are socio-cultural factors like dowry, poverty, illiteracy, family name, fear of society, identity. There are certain economic factors also, religious factors also, legal factors also, and there are psychological factors too responsible for this problem. Here you can see the status of sex ratio at birth across the countries. Now, this slide shows the decline in child sex ratio at national level in India. Now, these are the consequences of this female feticide problem. Elimination of female fetuses after prenatal sex determination tests would lead to increase in problems against women like abduction and kidnapping for marriage, prostitution, domestic violence. An associated phenomena is the abduction and trafficking of girls. Female feticide will lead to increase in crimes against women like rape, molestation, forced polyandry, teasing, child marriages, sexual harassment, trafficking of women for prostitution and bride purchasing. It will lead to problems related to physiological and psychological health of women like anemia, sexually transmitted diseases, pelvic pains, irregular menstrual cycle, infertility, depression, anxiety, fear, sleeping disturbances, and low self-esteem. One clear social repercussion is non-availability of brides, and the institution of marriage would lose its significance. This shortage of brides might lead to early marriage to cope with the problem, and increasing number of child brides will contribute to poor status of women. If these trends of imbalanced sex ratio continues, one of the serious repercussions would be rude shock to the institution of marriage in decades to come. However, weak law enforcement and easy access to ultrasonography fail to curb this practice. And sex selection through in vitro fertilization and other technologies such as pre-implantation genetic diagnosis and pre-implantation genetic screening and sperm sorting has emerged as the new challenges towards curbing female feticide. To know about the facts responsible for such crime, a study titled "A Social Action Research for the Prevention of Female Feticide" was carried out under my supervision to find out the root causes responsible for such criminal practice, with the objective to assess the socio-cultural, economical, and other factors contributing to the female feticide. Total sample of the study was 800 respondents. Entire sample was drawn from Jammu district of Jammu and Kashmir. Tools used for the study were interview schedule, interview guide, and focus group discussion. And the data was analyzed both quantitatively and qualitatively. Findings of the study reveal that major reasons for female feticide are dowry, considering girl child as economic liability and high cost of marriage, poor knowledge and implementation of legal factors, and also because of some religious and psychological factors. The reason as to why parents, especially women, kill girl child, how this behavior, the criminal practice and other criminal tendencies can be tackled, as it is a particular mindset which is responsible for this huge problem, resulting in killing of millions of girls every year throughout the world. The reason for such mindset and the ways of modifying such behavior will be explained by my co-partner, Mr. Rameshwar Singh Jamwal. Now I request Mr. Jamwal to explain how Indian philosophies of yoga and Sankhya can contribute this in eradicating this social evil of female feticide. Now over to Mr. Jamwal, please.
Thank you, Professor Shashi. You ably highlighted this enormous problem, and uh, one shudders to think about the consequences of such practice if it is not curbed at the right moment. And now I would be starting this session. Uh, yes. Yeah. So, crime against women, containing crime and treatment of offenders through yoga, the way ahead is the title of this presentation, and uh, as pointed out by Professor Shashi as well as the UN Human Rights Council, 117 million girls go missing worldwide due to sex or selective abortions every year. So it's a huge problem. And then it gives rise to many other related crimes like uh, rapes, then violence against the women, then uh, eve teasing, and so many other crimes. And our main objective is to understand as to why people do all these things, because I've seen the profile of all those persons who are doing all these things. They are normal persons. Maybe that in their entire lives they may not have violated even the traffic offenses. But when it comes to the question of killing a girl child, either in the womb or immediately after birth, they won't hesitate to do it. Why they are doing it? I'm, I'm trying to understand this thing. For the last about 30 years, I worked on this problem, but found that no criminological school of thought accounts for this thing. No criminological theory explains this kind of behavior. So, from where to get an answer for this thing, and how to control this thing? For that matter, I try to learn something from Indian philosophical point of view, the yoga school of thought, then the Sankhya philosophical school of thought. Now, about yoga, a lot of people know as to what is yoga, and millions of people are doing and practicing this thing. But so far as Sankhya is concerned, not many people know about it. But by applying these techniques from this thing, I tried to change the behavior of so many persons, and it was a almost success story. And now coming to the various criminological theories, as I talked earlier, you see that number of criminological theories have been propounded from time to time for the last 300-400 years. Many eminent people worked upon these problems throughout their lives. They worked upon these things. But the fact also remains that still we have not been able to find out the exact reasons of human behavior as to why people commit crime. If they had found the answers, then perhaps the crime problem would not have come to such a level at which is existing at the moment. So I'm not going to discuss these criminological theories, because you pick up any book of criminology and you will find all those criminological theories. Straightway, I'll come to my concept or my theory about all these things and how this concept can be utilized for controlling this kind of behavior and the other kinds of criminal behaviors as well. You see that when people kill girl child immediately after birth or in the womb of the mother, we are not going to study the hands of those persons who kill girl child or who bury the girl child, because hands are not going to give us any indication as to why the people commit such kind of crimes. We have to go to the crime control center from where the command to do such an act comes, and that is the human brain. In the same fashion, if somebody has killed by stabbing somebody, by shooting somebody, or by raping somebody, the control and the command center is the human brain. So we need to study the human brain, which criminologists are using now. They are trying to understand the functioning of the human brain. but still, if not even, I think 10% of the human brain functioning has been understood till today. Most of the common people associate human brain as one other part of the body, just like your liver, your heart, or something like that. But human brain is something different. It consists of thousands of mini brains, maybe millions or maybe trillions, because each and every cell, more than 100 billion cells are there in human brain. Each cell is capable of taking a decision of its own. And these cells are then connected to each other with as many as 1,000 trillion connections. So see the magnitude, see the wiring, and it's not something static. It is changing every minute, every second. New connections are being made, old connections are being disconnected. So much happenings are happening in the human brain that it's almost impossible to uh, judge as to why we do whatever we do. And then the human brain cells are not the only significant factor in the brain, because in the cells you have so many other things. This is the cell is called neuron. In the cell there's many small parts, but in the center of the cell you have the nucleus, and within that nucleus you have the chromosomes, you have the genes. We need to understand the functioning of those genes and then those cells as well, as to how the genes produce various types of amino acids. Proteins are constructed from them. Then those proteins result in formation of the neurotransmitters. Then those neurotransmitters get transmitted to the other cells or to other body parts. The uh, body parts which translate those thoughts or those actions into body actions. If we have to run, we run. We have to walk, we walk. If we have to slap somebody, stab somebody, kill somebody, all those are the actions of the human cells acting in combination with the genes. Now, genes, most of the people don't know the functioning of the genes, because in criminology, unless and until you go that much deep, you try to understand the functioning of the genes, you will not get the kind of results which we are aiming to get. Now, genes consist of DNA. D stands for sugar, which is connected to a nucleus base, nucleic acid bases. And the bases are of four types: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. Just one difference in the functioning of these or in the placement of these bases, and the entire functioning of the gene, the entire functioning of the human brain cell, the entire functioning of the human being would change. It's a huge type of functioning of this entire uh, gene functioning, then cell functioning, then human brain functioning, and then because of the human functioning, a lot of criminal activities get committed. So we needed to understand as to why the people commit those acts. Now, you can change the functioning of these genes and the cells by adding certain uh, extra materials or extra solutions or extra something. Uh, for example, you can add phosphate groups, you can add some other groups, and then the functioning of the genes and then the functioning of the uh, brain would change. But we can't experiment these things with humans. We have been experimenting these things with animals, with rabbits, with rats, etc. And we have seen that by bringing change in the functioning of these genes, their behavior changed. Either they became more aggressive or they became less aggressive, and then they committed different kinds of acts. But you can't experiment these things with human. And secondly, we go with the presumption, most of us, we go with the presumption that human beings and those animals on whom or on which we experiment these things, they belong to the same kind. But whether they in fact belong to the same kind or there is a difference between them, and that difference is that of degrees or that of kind, these are the questions which need explanation and which needed to be explained. Now, Indian philosophy says that humans are a different kind, different variety, because the animals don't have that much of thinking capability. See the functioning of the animals, whatever they were doing for the last so many years, so many millions of years. If the monkeys were climbing the trees, they are still doing the same things. Even after the passage of more than several millions of years, they are still doing the same thing. But see the progress of the human beings. From where we started and where we have reached. We have reached the moon, we are aiming to reach the Mars and the uh, other ends of this galaxy, or maybe the far corners of this universe. This is enormous progress from the human side. Why this thing is happening? You see that humans act when they get signals from their five sense organs. We have got five sense organs from which we get signals: our ears, our eyes, our uh, tongue, our nose, our skin. When we get some signal, then we try to act upon those signals. And on the basis of those signals, we commit different kinds of acts, which can be criminal acts as well. And for that matter, people get punished. That is a different issue. But human actions are not the end result of only these signals which are coming from these five sense organs. A lot of things are happening within the human being. I'm talking about his ideas, his thoughts, his passions, his greed, his anger. And these are the factors which lead him to commit lots of crimes. If the people are killing those girl children or killing somebody else, if they are smuggling narcotics, if they are transporting people for those different kinds of criminal activities, they all are doing this thing when they get ideas about these crimes. And it's not that an idea comes to an individual and he immediately commits the crime. Maybe that he gets an idea today and he will commit that crime after, say, 6 months. But he is storing that idea in his brain. He is having that idea, uh, that thing in his brain. Now, where that thing is being stored? For that matter, we needed to understand as to what is human mind. Because Professor Shashi also talked about changing the human mindset. But what is human mind? How it acts? From where it functions? What is its size? Of which material it is composed of? And then what is human consciousness? How we take conscious decisions, how sometimes unconscious decisions are taken, and then how to change that mindset. For that matter, you needed to study Indian philosophical point of view. The yogic philosophical point of view, the Sankhya philosophical point of view, which talks about the 24 elements which needed to be studied, the five great elements which constitute human body. Then there is false ego, intelligence, and three modes of nature. Then there are five sense organs, which I talked earlier. Then five working senses through which we take actions, five objects of those senses, and then most important of that, the mind. And by doing yoga, we can change all these things. Now, we needed to understand the difference between the human brain and the human mind as well. The brain is gross. You can cut it open, you can see its various parts, the frontal parts of the brain, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, the uh, other parts of the brain. You can see even the cells, etc. But you can't see the mind. Mind is something which is very subtle, where thoughts come and go. which hunters in interior and the exterior of the body. It can assume any shape. It can have any desire, thought, and action. These are the. Then there are three corollaries of human mind: conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind. And then it has five different varieties called Praman, Viparya. No, these are the technical terms I can't explain because of the time constraint. I can't explain all these things in this short duration. These five varieties give either joy to us or they give sorrow to us, and the best possible way to create the best possible conditions for uh, joy uh, is to change the mindset towards positivity. In in yoga and Sankhya philosophy, it's called Sattva Guna, where everybody would feel doing something positive for the rest of the country, for his family, for his society, for his country, for the rest of the world. That is called Sattva Guna type of quality. Then there is Rajoguna type of quality, which quality or which kind of nature is there in normal human beings like me and you. And then Tamoguna, the negativity, where everybody who's having such kind of practice or such kind of attitude will try to harm somebody, will try to commit crimes, and that kind of quality we need to change. And it's not that these are static things. Human body or human being is born with, say, let us say that 33% of the equality of each of these components. But with the passage of time, as he interacts with the society, as he learns many things from different kinds of people with whom he interacts with, different kinds of persons with whom he has got a chance to uh, sit together, from them he learns many things, and because of that the ratio of these three qualities goes on changing. Any quality can be dominant at any point of time. It becomes, if it becomes dominant, the others become recessive, and then it dominates and overpowers these qualities. And once one particular kind of quality overpowers the other, then the fellow being will convert to that kind of personality. Now, I talked about yoga. Most of the people try to link yoga with only the postures or some kind of body exercises. But yoga is not all about exercises or postures. It has got 8 limbs. The first is yam, then niyam, then asana, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Now, these are the 8 limbs of yoga. We normally do only the first or the second or third, or maybe at the fourth stage we reach at the most. But the fifth and the sixth segment of the yoga, they are very, very important. Fifth is pratyahar. When you take your sense organs towards your inner being, you withdraw your senses from the outer world to the inner world. And then dharana. Dharana is the control of those senses. Once you succeed in controlling those sense organs, then naturally they will not disobey you. They will not go astray. They will not lead you to commit crimes. But it's a easy said than done. It's a very, very difficult kind of practice, but definitely achievable. And it's achievable target. And we have to tell people as to how these things can be achieved, and only then we will succeed in changing their behaviors. Now, the first segment or the first part of the yoga was yama. Yama means it has 5 subparts. Ahimsa is non-violence. When somebody does not do any violence to anybody, whether that is a human being or an animal, then there is no chance of anybody committing any murder or killing anybody. Now, non-violence does not mean that we have to kill somebody to do violence to him. Non-violence also means that we should not say anything which can hurt the feelings of somebody. And when we don't hurt the feelings of anybody, there is absolutely no possibility that fellow getting angry over me or hitting me and hurting me. In the same way, the other part, satya is truth. Asatya is not uh, uh, not taking away those things from somebody else by using unfair means which belong to him or which do not belong to you. Brahmacharya is celibacy. Apargiraha is not collecting all those things which are not required by you. And when we do all these things, when we don't collect all those things which are not required by us, then naturally many SDG goals would also be met, because then the shortage of the things would also come down, uh, because then the persons would be using only those things which they require for their necessity. In the same fashion, niyama is the second leg of the yoga. Here, the personal cleanliness called socha, santosa, the contentment. Tapas is austerity. Swadhyaya is self-study as to whatever I'm doing, why I'm doing it, why I need to change, how I should change. This is called personal study every day. When we try to inculcate those feelings in all those yoga practitioners, their attitude starts changing. When we tell them that in the evening they have to spend just 5 minutes trying to study as to what they did during the day and how that was beneficial for him, for the beneficial for the society, for the country, for the world at large, then naturally his attitude would start changing. In the same way, Ishwar Parinidhan is the worship of the God. These are the asanas or the postures. There are hundreds of postures. I can't tell all those postures because it's not the scope of the present presentation. And if somebody is interested, we can certainly tell them. But this right hand side posture is called meditation or dhyan. This meditation is the most important. It seems so simple that one is sitting by closing down his eyes and just thinking, but it's a it's a very tough type of thing, because your mind will try to run away from you. It will go in different directions. It will think about different other things. Gradually, you have to take your mind towards your inner self. When you withdraw your mind from outer world to the inner world, you will see that your attitude, your way of life would start changing. You will see a positive change. You will see that your attitude, your behavior is changing towards positivity, towards Sattva type of personality. And for that matter, a lot of practice is required. And not many people go into this thing uh, as to how this meditation can be done, because meditation is the most tough part of the yoga asana. Uh, then, when you are sitting in meditation, you are then you are trying to give those thoughts by virtue of which you can change the thoughts and the way of life of the others. For example, you have to tell the practitioners that he need not go for committing different kinds of white collar crimes, or indulge in smuggling or corruption or property crimes or human trafficking, cyber crimes, or even road accidents and industrial accidents, adulterations, homicides. These are the result of greed factor. And greed is something which nobody knows as to from which part of the brain it comes. And then when you are trying to control your brain, greed would also be controlled. In the same fashion, anger is something which results in lots of other uh, criminal activities. The murders, the violent crimes, they occur only because of the anger factor. Then lust gives rise to the sexual offenses, the rapes, the unnatural offenses. So many other sexual offenses get committed because of the lust factor. Now people say that lust comes from the particular part of the brain, but that part is also composed of millions of human cells. So we can't say as to which particular cell is responsible for this lust factor. In the same fashion, when we have a passion to gain something without having the capacity to do that, or without having the necessity to do that, then we commit different kinds of offenses. Then ego is also there. I am more important, I am more supreme, I have to occupy this chair, I have to uh, do this thing, I have to do that thing. Only because of this ego factor, lots of other crimes are also committed. uh, Now, yogic crime theory, this is the most important thing as to what is yogic crime theory. As I talked earlier, that the ratio of those three qualities, sattva guna, These are the things which need to be remembered. Satoguna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. This is not a constant factor. It goes on changing. Now, the ratio of these factors fluctuates as per the food of the sense organs. We need to change. We need to change even the intake of our food, the kind of food which we take. That also affects our personality. For example, if we had uh, uh, got something to eat by illegal means, by stealing that thing, then it will have a consequential effect on your personality. Your Satavguna personality would come down, and the other type of personalities would change. We have to change the ratio of the sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic qualities. Now, I talked about that thought and that idea. We are storing all those thoughts and those ideas in some parts of the brain. In the same fashion, we are storing so many other things in our brain. You see, in audio format, in video format, in still format, millions of files. For example, I still remember my marriage ceremony. I got married more than 26 years ago. But if I have to remember a particular scene of a particular kind of ceremony which took place in that marriage ceremony, immediately I can see all those things. The first question is where I'm seeing that, because it has not been displayed in any screen. It is all happening in your mind. Secondly, from where I am picking up that it must have been stored somewhere. It must be having some size. What is the size? What is the format of that file? Is it GIF file? It is PNG file? Is it some other form of file? Then what is the size of that file? So millions of files are lying in my brain or in my mind, and if I have to pick up those files and delete those files, then naturally a lot of space would be created. Just like a computer, you have lots of programs in your computer. Some of the programs are the uh, virus infected files which you don't want. You delete those files. Naturally, there is a lot of space which is created, and that space you have to fill up with positive ideas, with positivity. So, in the same fashion, those millions of files, evil programs, the evil acts which I committed maybe sometime during my lifetime, those files are lying there, and it is only because of those files that I am doing my present acts. If I am doing some illegal acts, unjustified acts, reprehensible acts, deviant acts, it is only because of those evil things which I did in my past life, or during this life, in my uh, uh, from my birth till I attain a particular kind of age. Now those files are called sanskars. Those sanskars which I do regularly on my day-to-day basis, some sanskars get deleted immediately, which are not required because your brain is deleting lots of programs every day. And some files, some important files are stored in your brain. Those sanskars are stored in a place which is called karmasya. Now, karmasya is just like a storeroom. In that karmasya part, record room, you have millions of files. You have to pick up those evil files, evil programs, you have to delete. How this happens? This happens when you are doing meditation. When you are meditating, gradually, with the passage of considerable time, those files, evil programs would start coming up to the conscious level. And then those files get burned out, or they are eliminated from your brain. Once those files get eliminated, naturally your this entire outlook, your behavior, your way of thinking, that would change. Initially, the evil files, the evil programs would come up to the conscious level. They are called vitarka files, evil files, obnoxious files. They come up to the conscious level, they get eliminated. Space is created, then you fill up with that positive ideas. After another few months, the normal files, the normal programs, which you don't require, but still they are lying in that record room. They also start coming up to the conscious level. Then gradually they are also deleted. Naturally, more space is created. Then Anand. Anand is a stage, bliss. You feel uh, as if different kind of joy is coming to you. You must have seen the faces of the lots of prophets. A kind of glow is there on their faces. That is the bliss which is coming. Once you succeed in eliminating all those evil files and even the normal files, that bliss comes now. And then the last stage is the asmita, when you are joined with the ultimate, whatever name you may give it, God, prophet, whatever you may say. And that is the stage which is required for changing the entire this problem of crime. But I can't say that the entire world would change by doing yoga practices. But if we succeed in bringing some number of people, lot of things can be changed. For example, if we bring a lot of youngsters, school-going kids, college-going school children, then persons working in the different industries, corporations, etc. Those who are responsible for white-collar criminality or maybe blue-collar criminality, we can change the whole lot of the world, and we have to change. And for that matter, Sankhya philosophy is there. We have to enfeeble this enfeebling process I have explained earlier, because when you are doing the yogic practices, those evil files, evil programs are coming up to the conscious level, and then they are getting eliminated. And when you are eliminating all these evil thoughts, the violent acts, this corruption acts, the smuggling acts, this narcotic smuggling, lot of other things would change. And this is just like a reformation of your brain and mind. You are creating space in the brain, you are removing obnoxious material, and then you are trying to fill it with satavguna, or the positive kind of material. And after this vitarka, the evil programs get eliminated. You have a towards positivity, a man traveling towards positivity, uh, towards a path wherein he would be doing good to everybody. Now, who are the persons who would be who can be brought in this program scheme of things? Firstly, those who will be imparted yoga. As I said, that a lot of schools, colleges, and universities can incorporate such programs in their syllabi, and then when students would start doing yoga, naturally they would become good citizens. Naturally, they would be assets to the society, to the countries. But there would be a lot of people who would not be interested in doing yoga. Then how we do it? We have to readjust their mindset. Then we need to readjust the cause. By restructuring the construct systems of those persons, by changing the values, beliefs, opinions about law, by taking away the sense gratifying objects, by altering the modes of punishment, by making punishment certain and immediate, by introducing Sankhya concepts to reduce recidivism in jails and prisons. When we introduce Sankhya philosophy and Yoga philosophy in the prisons, we have seen that the behavior of the criminals changed towards positivity, and there was less recidivism. We can introduce this Yoga philosophy and Sankhya philosophy in the prisons, and we see that more than 13 million, I think 13 million people are in different prisons all across the globe at the moment, and there are millions who have escaped the clutches of law, or who may have spent their prison terms, but still they are doing the same thing. Maybe that they are not getting caught, or maybe that they have become better criminals, but we need to change them as well. So these are the things which are required uh, by, by the different organizations which are working in this field, the UNODC, even the United Nations. It's different organs can do it. The UNODC can do it. Then the different nations, the states, they can introduce yogic practices and yoga in their countries, the civil society groups, the schools, the educational institutions, the corporate sector, the prison systems. They all can do it. And by introducing this thing, we would be succeeding in introducing 26 divine qualities which are there. I can't list them, but these are the 26 divine qualities. And once a person starts uh, going towards these qualities, naturally there would be no scope for doing any type of criminal act. Now, these are the actions which are required to be done. We need to change the attitudes through specially designed mass genetic and behavior engineering model of Sankhya and Yoga philosophy. I call it mass genetic and behavior engineering model because the entire functioning of the genes, the entire functioning of the cells, and the entire behavior would change. And we can do it at mass levels, at the community levels, at the country levels. We have been doing it at small levels, but we can do it at the bigger levels as well. We need to create infrastructure for that. And infrastructure is not something very big, which is the thing which is required. Just by spending $1 or $2 per person for purchasing a yoga mat and then allowing him to sit in a place which is 6 feet by 4 feet, he can do yoga. Not much infrastructure is required. The schools have got the big rooms where the students can do it. The industries can do it in their open spaces or maybe in some halls. You don't require to create any infrastructure, extra infrastructure. Nothing is required to be spent on this thing. The important thing is that we need to institutionalize the entire process, and this can be done only by the United Nations. United Nations has been celebrating Yoga Day, but celebrating one day in a year, that is not helping. The focus is only on the physical parts of it. How to change it towards mental to bring a mental change in the people. That is that when you institutionalize the system, when the countries introduce the programs in the industries as part of their legal systems, then the communities also introduce this thing. They adopt these things. The organization, the schools, the individuals, they start adopting all these yogic practices. They will certainly succeed in changing the human behaviors. We need to involve the corporate sector, the educational institutions, the police and the prison managements. They all need to be brought together. And I'm quite hopeful that all those persons who are attending this conference, maybe from different organizations, but they have got definitely very uh, mm, large scope in working on these issues. Then they can take up the matter with the political leadership of their countries. A lot of political leaders are also here attending this conference. They can do it at their local levels. Then there is a lot of literature which is not there in English language, because it is there in either in Hindi language or in Sanskrit language, which are the languages of India. That entire literature needs to be translated to English language, so that large segments of the populace are try to understand. Then other languages of the United Nations, the five languages uh, which are spoken throughout the world, it can be translated to those languages also. Once the literature gets translated, people will come to know as to how important this technique, how important the yogic philosophy is, how important the Sankhya philosophy is, and then they will start adopting all these things. Now I'm coming to the concluding part. So I said a lot of things remain to be explained. I could not explain because of the time constraint, because uh, I have spoken a lot. Maybe some questions and answer session. Somebody is interested in asking those questions. I have to explain that also. We needed to blend all these concepts from different subjects. For example, we needed to blend the concepts from quantum theory, the space relativity theory, because unless and until you try to understand, as to people say that we are doing because of the nature. No, what is nature? You can't understand nature unless and until you know something about quantum theory, about the space relativity theory, about dark energy, about the atoms, about the subatomic particles, electrons, protons, neutrons, up to quarks. You needed to understand this. because if you don't understand that these inanimate objects, they are not responsible for my actions. Those electrons, photons, those dark energy, those uh, planets, those stars, and those galaxies, they are not responsible for my actions. Then what is responsible for my actions? We need to understand as to what is life and what is human life, from where the life originated, from where it is originated, from where how it is migrating from one body to another body. We needed to understand all those things. How the chemical composition of the brain cells or the other things are in the human brain, how the cells are changing, how the cells are functioning, how the genes are functioning, what are those particular kinds of amino acids which are responsible for our behavior. We needed to understand as to what are those proteins which are to be constructed, which proteins are best suited for changing our behavior. For that matter, we needed to understand chemistry, we needed to blend it in the present concept, we needed to understand biology, because lot of uh, uh, body parts are involved in criminal acts. Your hands are involved, your legs are involved, your other body parts are involved, your brain is involved. You needed to understand what is human brain, how it functions, how it controls your actions, what are those brain cells, how the genes are functioning. You needed to understand genetics, then epigenetics. It's a new emerging science. You needed to understand epigenetics as well, because epigenetics says that your behavior is also responsible on a long term basis with the different kinds of things which are in your neighborhood. For example, the kind of people you are interacting with, the kind of foods which you are taking, because those foods are ultimately responsible for the creation of certain chemicals which bind to the genes, and which genes, and then those programs get transmitted from the parents to the children. And it is only because of that factor that the uh, criminal behaviors sometimes get transmitted from the, and this is the new research which is going on, that biological factors are certainly responsible for some of our criminal actions. We can't ignore now biological factors. Then the psychological factors you needed to understand, because genetics and epigenetics, or maybe neurobiology, or maybe other things, they did not explain as to what is psychological factors, what is mind, what is uh, mindset, what are the human mind parts, because nothing is there in the biological parts. Then behaviorism, what kind of behavior a person is displaying at a particular point of time. You needed to understand as to how particular behavior deficits needed to be filled up to make a person a positive person. What kind of behavior assets needed to be strengthened? What kind of behavior excesses need to be deleted? For that matter, you needed to understand behaviorism as well. Then you needed to understand Indian philosophy of yoga and Sankhya. Now, these are the philosophies which require lots of explanation. I could not have done it in 1 hour program, but if somebody requires my help, or our help, or Indian help, they can certainly contact us. We can tell them, we can help the countries, we can help the systems, we can help the communities, individuals, whomsoever requires our help. We can certainly come forward and share our knowledge, and on the basis of that, we can certainly succeed in changing human behaviors. And by changing the human behaviors, now coming to the back to the present topic, by changing the human behavior, we will be succeeding in changing the human behavior of all those persons who are killing girl child only because of the fact that she happens to be a girl child. If she had been a boy, she would not have been killed. Simply because she happens to be a girl child, she is not in a position to offer any resistance. She is being killed in the womb or immediately after birth, and millions of such cases are happening every day. We are killing thousands and thousands of children. And international community needs to take note of all these factors, because these have been kept under the wrap, under the carpet by the different countries. If they reveal these figures, then the 50% of those countries' populations would be in jails and prisons. They don't want that. They want that their systems, the criminal justice systems, which are functioning at the moment, they would collapse. They don't want the collapse of their criminal justice system. So because of that, nobody is reporting all these cases. And then these things are happening in the dark corners or in the dark rooms of different clinics and different laboratories. We are doing it, but we need to check this tendency. We really want to do this thing, then uh, we need to take certain steps. Uh, for that matter, I needed to point out all these factors, and I needed to now coming back to the presentation crimes and how yogic crime theory can help in controlling these types of crimes. So uh, 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 I'm sure that the international community would take note of all these things, and whatever assistance is required at our end, we are ready to help the international communities. We are ready to help the UNODC, but because of certain factors, we have not been able to popularize this concept. It's a different kind of concept. It's a different kind of way of functioning. And it involves no expenses, nothing of the sort is required. It's just would be like a free kind of thing for the countries to implement. But whether the countries are interested in doing this thing, because I've seen that for the last 15, 20 years I'm doing it, but nobody has taken note of all these things. I've written a book on this thing, and second book also pertain to this thing, but unfortunately the international community, maybe because of the facts that it contained a lot of technical words, I tried to explain those technical words, those technical terms, but if something more is required, I'm certainly thank you. Uh, Thanks everybody. Now I'm giving the camera back to the hosts, and if somebody is interested in asking any question, thank you. I'm here to help.